audio novel based on real love story of an Indian couple. Author, Nazanin Amiri. Title, A New Dawn. Introduction. In a remote corner of India, in a village that had never known the bustling noise and distractions of the cities, a story was quietly unfolding, one that no one had expected. Durgapur, a small village nestled in the heart of Uttar Pradesh, had always been defined by its simplicity. The land was dusty, the roads were rough, and the people, despite their hard work, never seemed to escape the grip of poverty. Life here was like a slow river, flowing without urgency, carrying the hopes and dreams of its inhabitants, most of whom had long since abandoned any grand aspirations. Yet, amid this land of routine and toil, two lives were destined to intersect in ways neither of them could ever imagine. Neither Arya nor Viraj, born into this world of hardship and limitation, could have known that their futures would take them far beyond the horizons of their modest village. Arya was a girl with eyes full of wonder and a heart brimming with dreams. She grew up in a humble home, where her father worked as a farmer, and her mother did the endless chores of a housewife. Life was simple, but for Arya, simplicity was both a blessing and a prison. While other children ran through the dusty streets, Arya often found herself curled up in a corner, reading tattered books borrowed from the village school. In those quiet moments, she wondered if there was more to life than the soil beneath her feet. Her mother, always the pragmatic one, would remind her, "Knowledge is the only path that can lead you out of this, Arya. But it requires a strength that most people can't even begin to understand." Arya took these words to heart, knowing that someday she had to break free from the chains of her circumstances. Viraj, on the other hand, had always felt a sense of discontentment, even though his family was no different from Arya's. He too was born in the same village, raised by parents who worked tirelessly to make ends meet. Unlike his peers, who were content with their simple lives, Viraj felt that there had to be something more to the world than just the fields and the village lanes. His father, a teacher at the village school, often spoke of the power of education and the opportunities it could bring. For Viraj, these words were more than just ideas. They were the lifeline he needed to escape the confines of his world. But despite his passion for learning, the question loomed over him. Could someone from a village like Durgapur ever truly make a mark in the outside world? Each of them carried a spark of something greater within them, a yearning for more than their circumstances could offer. But could two young souls, born and raised in a place where dreams were often extinguished before they even began, ever really escape to something bigger? Could they, together, defy the expectations of the world around them? Their fates would collide in the most unexpected of places. At Delhi University, one of the most prestigious educational institutions in the country, where students from every corner of India came to pursue their dreams. Arya and Viraj, though from the same village, were worlds apart in terms of their experiences. Arya had never left Durgapur, and the vastness of the city and the university left her feeling like a small fish in a vast, turbulent ocean. Viraj, though, had always believed that if there was any way out, education was his only ticket. But here, among thousands of students with different backgrounds, he too felt like an outsider. Their first days at university were marked by uncertainty and the crushing weight of self-doubt. Both Arya and Viraj struggled to find their footing, unsure if they truly belonged in this world so different from the one they had come from. Yet, in the depths of their confusion, there was something more that connected them. The shared belief that, despite all odds, they could carve a path towards something greater. What began as a chance encounter in a classroom, two young people, both from humble beginnings, both uncertain of their place in this vast new world, soon grew into a bond of friendship and understanding. As the days turned into weeks, they learned from each other, their shared struggles and ambitions forming the foundation of a powerful connection. For Arya, Viraj represented the hope that it was possible to overcome her fears and embrace the future. For Viraj, Arya was the reminder that his dream of making a difference wasn't just a pipe dream. But neither of them knew where this connection would lead. Could a friendship born out of shared adversity turn into something that could change the trajectory of their lives? Or would the weight of their backgrounds, the expectations of their families, and the complexities of their new lives pull them apart? The answers to these questions were still unknown. What they didn't realize, however, was that the story of Arya and Viraj was only beginning. Their journey, one filled with challenges, self-discovery, and perhaps even love, was about to unfold in ways they could never have anticipated. And it would change not just their lives, but the lives of those they touched along the way. Chapter 1. Roots amid the rice fields and towering palm trees. Life in Durgapur followed its own quiet, timeless rhythm. A village where the days moved as slowly as the nights, where the air was filled only with the rustling of leaves and the distant hum of everyday labor. People here, with their rough hands and calloused hearts, lived simple lives, tethered to the earth by work and necessity. Nothing else seemed to matter. Yet, in the heart of this village, two children were quietly growing up, bound by circumstances but destined for very different futures. Arya was born into a family of farmers. Her father worked tirelessly in the fields, while her mother took care of the household chores. Theirs was a life of simplicity, days spent in the dust of the earth, and nights illuminated only by the dim light of an oil lamp. While the other children of the village ran through the dirt streets, Arya often found herself retreating into a corner, poring over the tattered books she borrowed from the village school. These books, old and frayed, opened up a world of knowledge and possibilities far beyond the borders of her small village. She couldn't shake the feeling that life had more to offer than the soil beneath her feet. Every night when the rest of the family slept, Arya would stay up late, reading by the flickering light. Her mother's warnings about the limitations of their world echoed in her mind. Knowledge is the only thing that can take you beyond this, Arya. But it demands strength. Strength that most people will never understand. Arya took these words to heart, and with them, she built an unshakable belief that she was destined for more than the life of a farmer's daughter. Viraj, on the other hand, lived a similarly humble life in the same village. His father was a school teacher, and his mother worked as a clerk in the village office. Though his family was a bit better off than Arya's, Viraj felt no different from the other village children. His days, like theirs, were spent among the fields and under the unyielding sun. But from an early age, Viraj was keenly aware of the limitations of his world. He was surrounded by books, some borrowed from his father, others from the local library, and as he read, he wondered, is this all there is? Could there be something more? While the other children played outside in the summer heat, Viraj would often be found sitting in a quiet corner, reading his books. He was deeply aware of the constraints of village life, and yet, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was something greater out there waiting for him. His parents, though supportive, couldn't provide him with the opportunities he craved. Still, they always told him that education was the key to a better future. Yet, despite their encouragement, Viraj knew that the world they had known in Durgapur was far too small for his ambitions. He wanted more than the dusty fields, more than the village lanes, more than the limitations that seemed to define his life. Both Arya and Viraj were, in their own way, fighting quiet battles within themselves. Arya dreamed of a life beyond the narrow confines of Durgapur, but she often felt alone in her aspirations. There were no role models for her, no examples to show her that such dreams were possible. Yet every night, with a book in her hand, she clung to the hope that she could transcend the life she had been born into. For Viraj, the struggle was internal too. He was grateful for the opportunities his family had given him, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he was meant for something greater than what the village could offer. As the years went by, their paths, though similar in some ways, diverged. Arya continued to dream, to study, to reach for something more, even when those around her couldn't understand why she wasn't content with the life that everyone else accepted. Viraj, too, struggled with the tension between the life he knew and the aspirations that pulled at him. Both knew that they were meant for something beyond the dirt roads and simple huts of their village. But could they ever break free from the world they had been born into? Could they escape the gravity of their circumstances? For now, all they had were their dreams, their books, and the quiet certainty that there had to be more out there. More than the confines of Durgapur, more than the lives their families had lived. Chapter 2. Striving for more. The years passed, and life in Durgapur remained largely unchanged. The earth was as hard, the sun as relentless, and the people just as tied to the land as ever. Yet, in the hearts of Arya and Viraj, something was stirring. A quiet determination that would not let them settle for a life of mere survival. From their earliest days in school, they each understood one thing. If they were to escape the limits of their world, they would need to fight for it. Both Arya and Viraj were born into a village where education was a privilege, not a guarantee. For most children, school was a place to learn basic skills, a place to pass the time before returning to the fields. But for Arya and Viraj, school was a battleground, a place where they could build the future they dreamed of. At the beginning of each school year, Arya would wake up before dawn to study. She had learned early on that if she wanted to succeed, she would have to work harder than anyone else. She was not only competing against the other children in her village, but also against the heavy weight of expectation that girls like her rarely had the chance to break free from their assigned roles. While other girls in the village spent their afternoons helping their mothers with household chores or playing with friends, Arya would be found sitting alone, poring over her textbooks, her mind fixed on a future that seemed so distant yet so within reach. She wasn't alone in her quest. Viraj shared her hunger for something greater. While his family was more educated than most in the village, his parents still lived simple lives. His father, a school teacher, would often come home tired after a day spent teaching the village's children, but he never failed to encourage Viraj's thirst for knowledge. Despite the struggles of his parents, Viraj never wavered in his desire for more. He would stay up late at night, studying by the dim light of an oil lamp, reviewing his textbooks and notes, preparing for exams that would one day allow him to leave Durgapur. Both Arya and Viraj knew that their future rested on one thing: their ability to excel academically. In the back of their minds, the dream of Delhi University was always there, looming like a beacon of hope. It wasn't just any university. It was a place where anything seemed possible, a place where students from all over the country gathered to challenge the limits of their knowledge and themselves. Their lives in Durgapur had always been a series of small struggles. The oppressive heat of the summers, the endless chores of daily life, and the sense that for most people, this was all there was. This was all that would ever be. But in Arya's and Viraj's hearts, there was a fierce determination to break free from this cycle. The exams they faced each year were not just academic hurdles. They were the gates to a future they could only dream of. As the final year of school approached, the pressure mounted. Arya was always the first to arrive at school, her books carefully packed and her heart full of resolve. She had become known as the diligent student, the one who never gave up, no matter how difficult the material. She had to work harder than anyone else. The other students often joked that she would be the first to leave the village and become someone important. But Arya took these remarks seriously. She didn't want to just be someone important in Durgapur. She wanted to be someone who could make a difference, someone who could prove that it didn't matter where you were born, as long as you had the will to fight for your dreams. Viraj, too, was relentless. He was known for his intelligence, but he wasn't satisfied with just being good at school. He wanted to be great. He wanted to stand out. His teachers often praised him for his sharp mind, but Viraj never took their praise to heart. He knew that praise would not get him to Delhi University. Only his hard work would. Every evening after finishing his chores, Viraj would study for hours, reviewing his notes and working through past exam papers. His family, though supportive, could never fully understand the magnitude of his ambitions. His parents wanted him to stay close, to return to the village after his education and help out with the school or the local community. But Viraj's mind was elsewhere. He wanted more. He wanted to immerse himself in the world of knowledge, in the world of possibilities that extended far beyond the fields of Durgapur. The day of the university entrance exam arrived, and the tension was unbearable. Arya and Viraj both sat in their respective exam halls, surrounded by thousands of other hopefuls. The questions on the exam seemed like mere formality to Arya. She had prepared for this moment her entire life, and now it was finally time to see if all her effort would pay off. The clock ticked on as she carefully answered each question, determined to leave nothing behind. She couldn't afford to fail. Not now, not after everything she had sacrificed. Viraj, too, felt a similar weight on his shoulders. The university had always been a dream, but now it was his reality to face. He felt the pressure of his family's expectations on him, the weight of his father's sacrifices, and the hopes of his village. The entrance exam was a final test, not just of knowledge, but of his resolve. Weeks passed before the results were posted. When the list finally went up, both Arya and Viraj stood in front of it, their hearts pounding in their chests. Arya stood on tiptoe, scanning the names. Her fingers trembled as she searched for her name among the list of successful candidates. There it was, Arya Mehra. She had made it. She had passed. Viraj, standing beside her, caught his breath. His name was also on the list. He had made it too. For a moment, they both stood in stunned silence. The noise of the crowd around them seemed distant, as if they were in a different world. The joy, the relief, the disbelief, it all hit them at once. They had done it. They had escaped. The gates of Durgapur, with all their constraints and limitations, had been opened, and they were stepping through. That evening, as Arya and Viraj sat quietly under the vast sky, they both reflected on the journey that had brought them here. They had spent so many years fighting for this moment, and now it was theirs. The long nights of studying, the sacrifices, the loneliness, they had all led to this. And in that moment, both of them knew one thing for certain. This was just the beginning. The path ahead was uncertain, and the challenges were far from over. But for the first time in their lives, they were no longer defined by the smallness of their village. They were free to become whoever they wanted to be. And for the first time, it felt like anything was possible. Chapter 3. A Shared Dream. When Arya and Viraj stepped into the gates of Delhi University, nothing felt like what they had known before. From the moment they arrived, the world around them expanded into a vast, unfamiliar space, filled with students, professors, and endless opportunities to explore ideas beyond anything they had ever imagined. For the first time in her life, Arya felt that her worth was being recognized. At university, she was respected not only for her academic abilities, but also for her determination and hard work. Professors acknowledged her potential, and classmates began to admire her diligence. Arya felt, for the first time, that she was part of a world where she didn't just belong, but where she could grow and thrive. But this new world was not without its challenges. She still felt moments of alienation, as though there was a part of her that didn't quite fit. Surrounded by students from wealthy families and those who had been exposed to higher education their whole lives, Arya sometimes felt like an outsider. In the quiet moments, she couldn't help but think back to the village, to the land beneath her feet, and wonder if this world, so far removed from the one she knew, would ever truly accept her. In this vast and intimidating new world, Viraj remained her anchor. Just as he had always been, he was a constant presence in Arya's life, offering support and encouragement whenever she needed it. Their bond had started long before they entered the university, formed in the small struggles of their rural childhoods. And here at university, it only deepened. They were two village students, together facing the complexities of a larger world, yet still very much connected by their shared past and their shared dream. Viraj was not just academically driven. He was driven by something deeper. He didn't just want to succeed. He wanted to make a difference. But alongside his ambition, there was a quiet and unwavering loyalty to Arya. He understood her in ways that no one else did. Late into the nights, as they studied together, they weren't just sharing notes or solving questions. They were helping each other through the challenges of their education and through the emotional weight of being far from home, far from everything they had known. The long study sessions became a refuge. As they worked side by side, the world outside faded into the background. The pressure of the exams, the constant push to perform, felt lighter with every shared glance and word of encouragement. Every equation solved, every historical fact discussed, was another step towards their dream. Their shared aspiration wasn't just to graduate or to earn degrees. It was to teach, to give back, to make a difference in the lives of others, the way their teachers had once done for them. One evening, as they sat together in the university library, surrounded by piles of textbooks and scattered notes on Indian history, a deep silence fell between them. The faint rustling of leaves from the trees outside the window, the quiet murmur of other students in the distance, all seemed far away. Their eyes met across the table. An unspoken understanding passed between them. In that moment, it was as though time had slowed. Finally, it was Arya who broke the silence. "Viraj," she said softly, "I've always dreamed of becoming a teacher, of standing in front of a classroom one day and telling students all the things I've learned. But you know, I want more than that. I want to teach them the things we were never taught. I want to give them the chance to go further than we ever could have imagined. Viraj smiled, his gaze warm and sincere. More than the lessons, Arya, he replied. We need to teach them that nothing can hold them back. When you and I came from that dry, barren land, it wasn't just about what we learned in school. It was about learning courage, about realizing that no matter where you come from, nothing should stop you from dreaming. That's what we need to show them. Nothing is impossible if you're willing to fight for it. That night, as they sat beneath the flickering lights of the library, a new understanding formed between them. It wasn't just about the exams or the degrees anymore. They were starting to build a shared vision, a vision where they weren't just students, but future educators who would shape the minds of the next generation, just as their own teachers had once shaped theirs. Days turned into weeks, and the distance between Arya and Viraj only grew smaller. As the semesters passed, their bond strengthened, not just through shared study sessions, but through a mutual sense of purpose. They were no longer just two students trying to make it out of a village. They were partners in a journey that would lead them to something greater than either had ever imagined. Over time, their connection deepened. It was no longer only about academic collaboration. Their quiet moments together, the glances they exchanged during lectures, the soft conversations late into the night, all spoke of something more. Their hearts were no longer just set on academic achievement. They had found a bond that transcended the classroom and had blossomed into something more intimate. They spoke less of their future plans. Both had always been clear about their dreams of becoming teachers. But now those dreams were intertwined. They no longer just wanted to inspire students with knowledge. They wanted to change lives, to offer something to young people that would empower them to break free from the limitations of their circumstances. Their relationship, built on a foundation of mutual respect and shared struggle, had evolved into something far more profound. They had become each other's confidant, partner, and source of strength. And as they moved forward into the next phase of their academic journey, they knew that whatever the future held, they would face it together. The days of studying late into the night, of walking through the university grounds side by side, of sharing their hopes and dreams over simple meals, had turned into the foundation of a shared future. They were no longer just two students from a distant village. They were a team, bound by their shared experiences, their shared goals, and the growing love that had emerged between them. For the first time, both Arya and Viraj understood that their journey was not just about leaving the past behind. It was about building something new together. And as they stood on the precipice of a future filled with possibility, they knew that whatever came next, they were ready to face it, hand in hand. Chapter 4. The Fulfillment of a Dream. Years passed since Arya and Viraj walked across the stage at Delhi University, each of them holding their degree with pride. They had conquered every challenge that life and education had thrown their way. And now, the world seemed to be opening up in ways they had never imagined back in the dusty lanes of Durgapur. But despite the prestige of their university degrees, despite the bright opportunities ahead, both Arya and Viraj knew that their journey was far from over. It was only just beginning. After graduation, the excitement of academic success faded into the reality of their shared vision. Both Arya and Viraj knew exactly what they wanted. They weren't interested in big cities, nor did they dream of high-paying jobs or easy lives. Their hearts were set on something much greater, a commitment to returning to the roots of their own journeys, to teach the children who needed it most, in places where education was still a luxury, not a right. They returned to their villages, Viraj to the village where his parents still lived, and Arya to hers. But fate had already woven their paths together in ways they couldn't deny. After years of deep connection, quiet conversations, and shared aspirations, they finally acknowledged what their hearts had known for so long. They got married in a simple ceremony, a union as unpretentious as their love. With both their families in attendance, they began a new chapter, one that merged not only their academic dreams, but their personal lives as well. But their journey didn't stop at the comfort of their villages. Both of them had always felt the need to give more, to reach further, to touch the lives of those who couldn't afford even the basics. It wasn't enough to be teachers in cities where resources were abundant and students had access to everything. They knew their mission had to be different. They wanted to teach in the most remote, neglected corners of the country, where education was a distant dream and where many children never had the chance to even dream of a brighter future. Together, they began traveling to far-flung villages, places where most people had never even seen a teacher, let alone an educated couple like them. These villages, though rich in culture and tradition, lacked even the most basic educational infrastructure. Classrooms were often makeshift, and the children had no proper textbooks or stationery. But what they lacked in material wealth, they made up for in eagerness to learn. Every day, Arya and Viraj taught history to these children, instilling in them not just facts and dates, but a sense of their own potential. They shared the stories of India's rich past, not just from textbooks, but from their own lived experiences of struggle, resilience, and the power of education to transform lives. Arya would often say to the children, "We are the result of our past, but our future is something we can shape." They didn't just teach history, they taught life. They showed the children the power of hard work, of dreaming big, and of believing that no matter where you came from, you could become whoever you wanted to be. Arya would stay late with the girls, helping them catch up on lessons while Viraj worked with the boys on critical thinking, encouraging them to ask questions and think beyond what was in front of them. Years passed in these villages, and slowly, change began to take root. The children of these villages began to excel in their studies. Some won scholarships to attend high schools in bigger towns, while others passed entrance exams to attend universities. Arya and Viraj's influence didn't just stay with the lessons they taught, it stayed with the fire they ignited in the hearts of these young minds. The lessons of perseverance, ambition, and belief that they had imparted to these children stayed with them long after they had left the classroom. Through it all, Arya and Viraj's love for one another continued to grow. Their shared purpose, their shared work, only deepened their bond. They had built a life full of meaning and fulfillment, one that was far richer than any material wealth could offer. They had become symbols of hope and inspiration for countless children, showing them that with enough dedication and belief, there were no limits to what they could achieve. One evening, after a particularly successful day of teaching, Arya and Viraj sat beneath the vast sky of their village, the air cool and crisp around them. They looked out over the fields where the sun was setting, painting the sky with brilliant oranges and reds. The sight was beautiful, but what made it even more beautiful was the knowledge that they had built something that would last far beyond their own lifetimes. "I think we've done it, Viraj," Arya said softly, resting her head on his shoulder. "We've given them something more than just education. We've given them a chance to believe in themselves." Viraj smiled, his eyes reflecting the same quiet contentment that had settled over him in the years since they had first embarked on this journey. "We've done it together, Arya," he replied. "We've shared our dreams, and now we're helping others realize theirs." As the stars began to emerge in the sky, Arya and Viraj knew that the work they had started would continue long after they were gone. The children they had taught, the futures they had shaped, would carry their legacy forward. Their own journey had come full circle, from the small, struggling village of Durgapur, where they had once dreamed of something more, to the farthest corners of India, where they had touched the lives of children just like themselves. Arya and Viraj had built a life of meaning and purpose, one that would never fade. And so, with love in their hearts and history in their hands, they continued to teach, to inspire, and to build futures, leaving behind a legacy that would echo for generations to come. The end.